Am I wrong for forcing my roommate to miss her finals exam that she spent 2 years studying for? Context: I live with a roommate and her 3-year-old child. Roommate is a 4th-year medical student and is really struggling, having to balance with child, intense study workload, chores, and part-time jobs to afford rent, babysitter, and necessities. On the day of the biggest exam of her entire degree, her babysitter canceled last minute. She was absolutely frantic and hysterically called every one of her contacts to help. Of course, she asked me. She has asked me before to babysit, and I always give a stern no. It's not the time that I need to spend, since I'm perfectly fine with swapping around chores, but the principle that I must be responsible for the child for the duration. Example, if the child hurts himself, no matter how badly, it would be on me. And I refuse to take that responsibility for something like that, so I always refuse to babysit. She begged me, and since the journey to her exam center is almost 2 hours and she needed to go now, she just said, "I don't effing care," and just left the house. Frankly, I found this quite disrespectful, as it is trying to push me to babysit without my consent. Right after she left, I grabbed my coat and also left. She was starting her car when she saw me and asked what I was doing. I told her I was going to watch a movie. I lied. I just refused to babysit without consent. Her eyes dropped and I could see the tears forming as she started begging me more to help her. I still explained the same thing, in that it's not the time or effort but the responsibility. She told me she would sign a waiver that states I am 100% not responsible no matter what happens. I am not an expert in law and not sure if such a waiver is even legally enforceable. Even so, it still carries a responsibility risk, so I stand my ground. Eventually, she became quiet and started sobbing while hitting herself. I, as respectably as I can, asked if there's anything I can help with that does not involve babysitting the child. She told me to F off, so I did and actually went to watch a movie. It's been a few weeks and she still absolutely refuses to communicate with me. I do feel pretty bad, since I've seen for the past 2 years we've lived together that she has almost no free time, always sleeps later than me, and wakes up earlier than me to cram in a little bit of extra study. I know the exam meant a lot to her, and missing the exam might jeopardize her entire degree of 4 years. It sucks that her efforts for the past 2 years has gone down the drain, but that's not an excuse to cross my bottom line.
Am I the asshole for not waking my husband up for his 5 a.m. walk? For the past month, my 36, husband 39 has been waking up at 5 to have a walk. These walks would take about 2 hours, and side note to mention that this is new. He's not trying to lose weight and is pretty thin, and he's not athletic by nature nor has sports interests or hobbies. In fact, he hated doing any type of sport. I'm happy for him, but yesterday he came home in the evening after working long hours and stayed up playing late on his phone. I went to bed at 10 after getting done with the mess and everything. I woke up by him yelling at me at 7 a.m. asking why I didn't wake him for his 5 a.m. walk. He said I'm responsible. Am I the asshole for not waking my husband up for his 5 a.m. walk? I said he always wakes up by setting his alarm, so why should I be expected to wake him up? He yelled that he forgot to set his alarm, and I said so what? It's not like he missed an important meeting or something, but he got angry. He said those walks help improve his health and restore his energy and make him feel better. I said missing one walk won't hurt, but he unloaded, yelling about how I was trying to prevent him from doing his hobby. I said he was mistaken, even though I admit those 5 a.m. walks around Veterans Park are weird, but also his reaction. He stormed off to the shower and said I ruined his entire day. Now he's avoiding and ignoring me. Am I the asshole for going off on my wife after she made a doing the nasty sign to keep my mom from knocking on our bedroom door? I've been married to my wife for 4 years and we have a medium-sized apartment. For the last 2 months, my mother has been staying off and on in our guest room. My dad passed away and it's been hard for her to live in the house alone, so I've been letting her stay. My wife and her have never particularly got along, but I expect her to understand why it's important. She just lost her husband of 40 years and she's fragile. My mom's presence has changed her nightly routine. She'll usually come knock on the door and my wife hates this. Mostly because it interrupts our intimacy, and usually when she's over, we just don't make love. Am I the asshole for going off on my wife after she made a doing the nasty sign to keep my mom from knocking on our bedroom door? This past week, I noticed my mom wasn't coming in, so we had normal nighttime habits. Yesterday, my mom pulled me aside and told me the sign I let my wife put on the door at night was disgusting and not something she needed to know. She also said she was very hurt that I didn't want to speak to her since I'm all she has left now. I told her I had no idea what the sign was about, and she explained. I had no idea and talked to my wife about it when she got home, and she admitted. The sign said, "Please do not disturb unless you want to see me blanking your son." She thought it was funny, but I was mad and crumpled it up and tossed it in the garbage.
Am I wrong for walking out of the baby shower my in-laws threw for me? The situation is kind of a mess. I, 27 female, and expecting my first baby with my husband. This is the first grandchild in the family, and they said that if the baby is a boy, then we'll give him my father-in-law's name. He's dead due to cancer, and I had no problem with that. This happened before we found out the gender of the baby. My husband and his family had me do things like attend prayers and do other rituals before the reveal at the doctor's. I didn't like that, but went with it to keep the peace. They thought if they do some hubba-lubba, they can decide the baby's gender. Doctor appointment came and it turned out to be a girl. My husband cried in the car, then turned his phone off to hide from his family, then finally told them. If my husband cried tears of sadness that we were having a girl, not a boy, I would be livid. Continue. His mom and the others made their frustration and disappointment clear, which bothered me because my daughter deserved to be celebrated. They ghosted me for days, then started coming over and visiting constantly, referring to my daughter as my son, claiming the results were false and basically pretending it's a boy. I had several fights with them, and after they refused to stop, my husband sided with them despite seeing how wrong and unreasonable what they were doing was. We didn't speak for a while. Sister-in-law called to apologize, then informed me she arranged for a baby shower for me. I was so excited and happy, but when I arrived, I saw blue balloons, blue cake, and father-in-law's name/decorations around. I was so confused I had to sit down. My sister-in-law explained that they were still hoping that my gender results are false and it's a boy. I looked at my husband and he agreed with her. I lost my temper and yelled at them all, calling them delusional and telling them to stop treating my daughter like she's unwanted and act like she doesn't exist by throwing a party for their imaginary grandson. Mother-in-law broke down crying. I took my bag and walked out immediately. They started yelling and my husband followed me outside and started arguing about how I insulted his family and his dad's memory by acting like that. He said they needed time to process the fact that it's a girl, not a boy, as they expected and insisted I play along and they'll soon get over it. I told him to wake up and see the insanity to his family's behavior. I said absolutely not and demanded he take me home. He said no, so I called an Uber and left. He was fuming. He called 15 times, then texted that he won't be coming home until I get my ass over and apologize for ruining everything they've done for me and accusing them of being mentally unstable. I haven't responded yet, but he's constantly pressuring me to get right with his family before we even talk about anything else. Oh my god! How many red flags do you need to see before you can run away? Oh my god, he's crazy. And another thing, the woman doesn't determine the gender of the baby, it's the man. And as a pregnant woman, I would be pissed. My fist would be rolling. Oh my god, that would just make me cry.
My husband, Jesse, 31, has been bringing home meals that his female coworker, Nellie, cooks for him. Now, I'm not the best cook and Jesse's made it clear, but he still eats what I cook every day. What I noticed with Nellie was that she tends to take every opportunity to point out how weak and tasteless my cooking is. Jesse would say nothing except steer the conversation towards something else they both relate to while I'm sitting there wallowing in my misery thinking about what she just said. Also, she once asked what was another chore I was good at, and Jesse said ironing his suits. She, in response, joked about having him send her a suit of his so he could see how good she is at ironing too. I rolled my eyes hard, but at least Jesse agreed that was weird. Last week, Jesse came home with a new meal she cooked. I told him I already cooked dinner and asked what he was going to do with the meal. He told me he was going to eat it for dinner. Not gonna lie, I was getting a bit irritated and he must have noticed because he said that he promised Nellie he'd eat it for dinner and that she asked him to take a pic of the empty plate later to confirm that he'd actually eaten it. I was baffled. Completely baffled at this. I told him one thing and one thing only. Told him that if he chose to eat Nellie's meal over the dinner that I cooked, then this would be the last time that I cook for him. He started moaning about how I was being unfair and putting him in a rough place. He stalled and didn't give a clear answer until I saw him walk past me later when I set the table and prepared for dinner. That's when he put her meal in the microwave. I felt so awful, I almost cried. I then told him from now on I won't cook for him anymore since he made his choice. I obviously pissed him off because he went off on me calling me childish and pathetic to make this about my ego. I got up from my chair and told him that I owed him nothing and that he made his decision and so did I. He snapped and said that this was ridiculous and that Nellie was just doing a nice thing for him while my behavior was disgraceful and disgusting. He then went into the bedroom and I rushed after him, but he shouted, "Leave me the fuck alone." He then proceeded to shut the door and hasn't been speaking to me after that. His mom knew about the argument and called begging me to be more patient and not make any decisions I might regret later. She agreed that Nellie was overstepping and firmly believes that she's the problem and so I shouldn't be hard on her son. But my mother-in-law is incredibly biased, meaning in her eyes, her son is the saint who can do no wrong. So that's that. I feel like I overreacted and really messed it up by pushing him like that. Am I the asshole for telling my husband that I won't cook for him again if he chose to eat his coworker's meal over mine?